Alright, welcome back. So right now we're going to talk about loops, specifically for loops. There are different types of loops. There's for loops, while loops, do while loops. And we're going to talk about for loops first. Okay, so let's create a new class. If I can right click. There we go, let's call it test. Let's add a new method. Alright, so let's do it. So let's start by saying what for loops are. So loops in general is just a way to do something until a condition hits. So for example, we want to print out 1 to 100. We can just do it this way. We can do print out 1, and then we can print out 2, and we can print out 3, and we can just, like, let's pretend we're at 100 now, so we can print out 100. We just simply just use a print line statement 100 times and able to print out 1 to 100. So pretend that we printed out 1 to 100 here, right? So there's a easy way of doing this, right? You can use a loop. So let's use a for loop. So let's call this function print 1 to 100. Right? So now instead of just doing system print out line, sorry, can't speak. System.out.print line 1, system.out.print line 2, and so forth. We just use a for loop instead, and we say for, so again, this is a keyword, it's blue, for, left parenthesis, right parenthesis, int I equals 1, I is less than or equal to 100, I plus plus. And remember, I plus plus increments I by 1, so what we're saying here is we're starting at 1, while I is less than or equal to 100, we're going to increment I. And we're going to basically run this until I hits 100. So every time I increments, so the first iteration it's 1, then the second iteration it's 2, and the third iteration is 3, and all the way to 100. So it's going to, so now we can just print out I. So let's go ahead and run this now. Because we're printing something out inside this function, we don't have to put this inside of print itself. So let's just go ahead and run this. And we should get 1 to 100. And there we go. So for loops are useful for doing actions that require more than one action. Sorry, that's not the right way of saying it. They're useful for doing an action until a condition hits. And for example, in this condition, I hits 100 and we stop. So it is a terminating condition. So you have to make sure that there's a terminating condition. For example, there's something called infinite loop, and we'll give an example in the next lecture, where basically the loop never ends, and it's really bad coding error / bug because you don't want infinite loops because your program will never stop running until it runs out of memory. Next we'll do a similar exercise, but instead of printing out 1 to 100, we'll print 1 to n, and it can pass in n here. So what n means is like we don't know what n is, but n is like the last number to print. So 1 to n. So n can be million, n can be billion. We're actually going to try a million. So we're going to pass in a million here. We can pass in multiple values. We can keep trying it because you can pass in a parameter here, right? But let's just copy and paste this code. But instead of printing out to 100, we just print out to n. That's all we're going to change, right? And now we're going to run this again. And we're going to say we're going to pass in a million. So 6 zeros, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and then we're going to run it again. And we're actually going to print 1 to a million now, which is pretty cool. So you can see actually how fast it is. is actually pretty slow, right? Because it's printing from 1 to a million. It's only at 300,000 now. It's taking a long time, while 1 to 100 took a lot less, because, well, n was equal to 100 at that point, and now n is equal to a million. So it really depends, how many times this loop gets executed, and it could do very expensive operations. Like a print line statement is not that expensive in terms of time it takes to run the print line statement. If you do more expensive logic here, it will take even longer if you do it like a million times. So that's just one example. We could just also print to, let's say, 1,000, right? That will take almost no time for it to print. Probably less than 100 milliseconds. Yep, there it is. So it prints out 1 to 1,000. And let's do something more complex than just printing out 1 to n. We'll print out just every even number from 1 to n. So we'll say actually, let me just not do that. Let's just copy and create a new function. We'll call this print even numbers. And we'll say from int I equals 1 to I is less than or equal to n, I plus plus. Right now we're just putting 1 to n, but we're going to have if condition here. Remember if statements? If I mod 2 equals 0, print I. So what we're saying is if the remainder equals 0, it's even, right? For example, 4 divided by 2, if the remainder is 0, what am I saying? Sorry. If the remainder is 0, then print I. So like 4 divided by 2 is 2, there's no remainder. 3 divided by 2 is 1, remainder 1, therefore it is not even. I blanked out there, I don't know why. So this is called modulo. So we can do if I plus 2 equals 0, which we can do I times 2 equals 0, or we could do I mod or whatever. But mod is one of the operations in Java, so it's very useful for cases like this. We're trying to figure out if I is a even number or not. So let's do something simple, like let's print out just the first 10, right? So print even numbers, and we're just gonna do it to 10, so we should see 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, right? And there it is. Now, that's a little more complicated than just printing 1 to n, right? It's like you're printing just the even numbers. We're actually going to do something a little more complicated now. And it's actually a very common programming challenge that a lot of companies ask people to answer to pass the interview and get the job. And it's a problem called FizzBuzz, and we're actually going to try it. We're going to see if you can solve it without my help, so you can pause the video and try it yourself before I give the answer, but let's just get right to it. Let's talk about what the problem is and how we solve it. So let's get rid of all this, and let's create the function declaration, aka method signature. We'll say static void FizzBuzz. We'll pass an n. So we're going to say implement the function. So and the instructions will be here. So let's just give some instructions. So from 1 to n, print fizz if the number, which is I, is a multiple of 3, print buzz if the number I is a multiple of 5 and print FizzBuzz, like all one word, if the number, which is I, is a multiple of 3 and 5. Or print just the number itself if it is none of the above. If it's not a multiple of 3 or 5. Okay, so the hint I will give you is we just learned about modulo, which is, remember this, the percent sign. So use modulo or mod, use mod, use a for loop, and use if, else, if statements. Or you could do it using switch statement too, but and oh, by the way, this is called Java docs, so it automatically annotates what we have here. So we have a parameter n, and we can document what it is. We're not going to use Java docs right now, so we remove that. But these are instructions to implement FizzBuzz. So for example, you also want to call FizzBuzz, right, with 100, for example. Then we should see, for example, it should print 2. Sorry, it should print 1. It should print 2. It should print Fizz, because 3 is a multiple of 3. It should print 3. It should print 4. It should print Buzz, because Buzz is a multiple of 5. And it should print 5. And it should print Fizz, because 6 is a multiple of 3, and so forth. And for example, 15, instead of 15, you print Fizz Buzz, because 3 times 5 is 15. So therefore, 15 is a multiple of 3 and 5. Okay, another example of multiple of 3 and 5 would be 45, because 45 is a multiple of 3 and 5. So you print, instead of 45, you print FizzBuzz. Just those are just some examples. So this is how it should look, right, when you print everything out. So I'm going to go ahead and do it now. So go ahead and pause the video and try it yourself and see if you get the same solution I do. Okay. Well, by the way, before you start, this is a question that a lot of people actually miss in interviews. I would say, like, supposedly online people are saying that this is actually a stumper for a lot of interviews, and a lot of people can't do this who have 4-year degrees in computer science. So if you can do this, then it's actually great, and if you can't, it's okay, because a lot of people can't. But go ahead and try it though. So go ahead and pause the video and try it. Alright, so welcome back. So I'm sure you've tried implementing the function, and if you haven't, please do and pause it again. If you already have implemented the function, let's go ahead and go over the solution. So solution goes like this. So you have a for loop. You say for int I equals 0, so int I equals 1, you start at 1, because you want to print from 1 to n. I is less than or equal to n, I plus plus, just like before, right? Just like we have a for loop that prints from 1 to n. But inside, we only want to print specific cases, right? You want to print Fizz if it's a multiple of 3, Buzz if it's a multiple of 5, and FizzBuzz if it's a multiple of 3 or 5. Oh, sorry, 3 and 5, my bad. Or if it's neither of those 3 conditions, then we just print the number itself. So the way I would do it is I would check if it's a multiple of 3 and 5 first. That way, that would be my if condition. That way my else if just falls through. So that, for example, if I mod 5 equals 0, that means it's a multiple of 5. Or, and, I keep saying or, and I mod 3 equals 0. Just format this better. And we got some errors. Now you don't actually have to put these in parentheses. These are 2 different statements, but it just makes it easier to see, okay, this is one Boolean expression, or expression and Boolean expression, and this is another one, and you evaluate both at the same time. If you're saying and, or it could be, there's multiple Boolean expressions you can have. You can have or and, but in this case we want and. We want both to be true. So we want it to be multiple of 5 and 3, and if it is a multiple of 5 and 3, we print out FizzBuzz, okay? Cat blocks, okay. Else if, now it doesn't matter the order you go, as long as you do the else last, as in you just print a number if it's none of the above. So you can do either I mod 3 equals 0 next, or you can do I mod 5 equals 0 next. And then you just print out, if it's mod 3, you print out, with Fizz. And if it's I mod 5 equals 0, then you print out buzz, else you just print out I. So let's go over the logic before anything. So if it's a multiple of 5 or 3, or 3 or 5, keep saying or, if it's a multiple of 5 and 3, or 3 and 5, print out FizzBuzz, right? So for example, 15, right? If it's a multiple of 3 only, you print out Fizz. For example, 3 or 6 or 9, they're all multiples of 3. Or if it's just a multiple of 5, like 5, 10, and 20, because 15 is a multiple of 3 and 5, it's just a multiple of only 5, then you print out buzz. Or you print out just the number itself, like for example, 1 is not a multiple of 3 or 5, so you print out 1. 2 is not a multiple of 3 or 5, so you print out 2, and so forth. So this should work. Let's go ahead and run it. So let's pass in, we pass in the function with 100, so let's go ahead and run it. All right. And let's see how it looks like. So 1, 2, Fizz, makes sense because 3 is a multiple of 3. 4, 5, because 5 is a multiple of 5, so you print buzz. 6 for Fizz, because it's a multiple of 3. 7, 8, FizzBuzz, because 9 is a multiple of 3, and 10 is a multiple of 5. 11, Fizz, because Fizz is a multiple of 12 is a multiple of 3, and so forth. And as you can see, 15 is FizzBuzz because it's a multiple of 3 and 5, and so is 30, and so is 45, and so is 60, and so is 75, and so is 90. And you can do this for whatever n you want, like n equals, for example, if you pass in, let's say 10 here, it's only do it for first 10. If you pass in a million, it's going to do for up to a million, and so forth. So this is how you implement FizzBuzz, and I'll see you in the next lecture. We'll talk about while loops there.